Thank you so much for joining another video with me, Carson Spivey, here at Assisted Living Facility Launch. In today's video, we are going to be doing a very deep dive market research report into the state of Georgia, and we're going to specifically be covering two of my favorite care agencies that you can start within the next few months, which is going to be community-based day programs and what's called in Georgia community living supports. Okay, these are alternatives to things like the CRA's community residential alternative group home models, which I think are also very amazing business types to start. I myself have a group home, but if you are just starting out and you want to make a whole lot of money and do a whole lot of good in your community, I think these are the two best agencies to start. So let's break it down and let us get into it. So first and foremost, we're going to be talking about community living supports model and service needs. So community living supports in Georgia refers to individually tailored supports that help adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities live in their own home or family home. Unlike facility-based group homes, CLS services focus on helping individuals acquire or maintain daily living skills in a home-like setting. CLS is part of Georgia's Home and Community-Based Service waivers, the NOW/COMP waivers, for the intellectually and or developmentally disabled population, and is distinct again from community residential alternative services, which for people needing intensive 24/7 care in small group homes or host homes. In a CLS model, the individual typically lives in a private residence, their own apartment or family residence, and the provider agency sends direct support staff to assist with activities of daily living. Okay? And so understanding the service intensity. So community living supports, right? Think of it kind of like personal home care for the elderly. And we've talked about this in other videos as well. And if you want to learn more about supported living services as a whole and the model kind of that applies to at a nationwide scale, go ahead and click the next video. Either it's going to be posted right here or it'll be in the description. Guys, I think it is an amazing business model for you to start right now. Okay, so service intensity. So CLS in Georgia can range from a few hours of support per week up to continuous daily support, depending on the person's needs. Many adults receiving community living services do not require 24/7 line-of-sight staffing and supervision, especially if they live with family or are semi-independent. For instance, community living services might involve staff helping for several hours per day with tasks like meal preparation, bathing, budgeting, and or community outings. However, if an individual's needs escalate, it is possible to arrange near round-the-clock support through CLS by scheduling multiple staff shifts subject to waiver budget limits, which we'll talk about. Generally, those requiring full 24/7 care would be served under the CRA/group homes model. While CLS is often used for individuals who can safely live in the community with intermittent or daily scheduled support rather than overnight services, the Georgia waiver defines community living support into two tiers: basic, up to 3 hours of services in a day, and extended, over 3 hours of services in a day, to tailor supports to the individual's routine. In practical terms, many adults receive extended CLS on weekdays, for example, 8 hours of staff support, and less on weekends if natural supports are available. The flexibility of community living supports is a key benefit. Services are scheduled around the person's life, for example, their work, their day program, etc., promoting maximum independence while ensuring help is there when needed. If someone does require overnight or continuous care, the team would evaluate whether CLS can be stretched to cover all needed hours, or if transitioning to a 24-hour staffed setting, community residential alternative group home, is more appropriate. Okay, so getting into the goals of the model. All right. So the CLS approach is person-centered, aiming to help individuals build skills and autonomy in their own homes and communities. Staff provide training or assistance in areas like personal grooming, meal planning, household management, medication reminders, community integration, and other daily living activities. Unlike institutional models, community living supports treats the individual's residence truly as their home, with support adapted to their preferences. This model aligns with modern disability service principles, keeping folks out of institutional care and instead wraps services around the person in community integrated settings. Typical adult service needs. So adults receiving community living supports often need regular support, but not constant 24/7 monitoring. For example, an adult living with an aging parent might need a CLS staff for 6 hours each day while the parent is at work, ensuring the individual's safety and engagement. Others living independently might have staff drop in across the morning and evening shifts to help with morning routine and again with dinner and bedtime. Common support areas include personal hygiene, health and medication management, behavioral support, transportation to appointments or community activities, coordinating their medical care, skill building, and supervision for safety. Now, understand that in this model, staffing ratios are usually 1-to-1, one staff per individual. In community living supports, though Georgia's waiver also allows shared staffing, one staff per 2 to 3 individuals, okay, if clients can safely share supports. This can be a cost-efficient option for roommates or group activities. The exact hours of community living supports are determined in the individual service plan and budget. Some individuals may only get a few hours a week of drop-in assistance, whereas others approved for extensive support may effectively get daily coverage. 16 hours per day, split between multiple staff, leaving only the late night hours unsupervised. Overall, community living supports is a flexible, needs-driven service rather than a fixed schedule. It is tailored to ensure the person can live in the community as independently as possible, with support available during the times and activities where help is required. Okay? So, moving along, okay, that's kind of breaking down the service definition of community living supports. Again, very similar to personal home care. Now we're going to be talking about community access in a group model, okay? After this, before getting into the licensing portion, we are going to be talking about the rates. I'm going to pull up the profit and loss table so that you can see exactly how much this kind of service model can make. But first, just defining the rates so that you are aware of what actual services you'll be providing. Another service that I really like that we're licensing nationwide, okay, community access, right? Community-based day programs. Community access group is a non-residential, facility-based, or community-based service funded under Georgia's Now and Comp HCBS waivers. It is designed to help individuals with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities retain or improve self-help, socialization, and adaptive skills that enhance independence and community participation. This includes support for individuals to engage in meaningful community life activities like volunteering, recreation, hobbies, develop social skills and communication, learn safety and navigation skills in public settings, build self-advocacy and decision-making abilities. Unlike community living supports, which occurs in a person's own home, okay, community access group services typically take place in day programs or community-based group activities where one staff supports multiple participants, okay, like the group home model. All right. So quickly, right, to put in perspective, you're picking folks up from their homes, taking them out and about into the community, and then dropping them back off at home, typically 6 hours a day, Monday through Friday, 23 hours or 23 days out of the month, right? So service model and intensity, excuse me. So group size, delivering a group setting with a staff to individual ratio ranging between 1-to-2 up to 1-to-4 plus, one staff per 4 individuals plus, depending on the individual service level needs and their waiver budget. Schedule generally delivered during daytime hours on weekdays can range from a few hours to full attendance up to 8 hours per day, depending on the service plan. Transportation is oftentimes bundled into the service, where providers may transport individuals to and from group activities or the center. Okay. So next, service goals. Okay. So the point of this is to promote community inclusion, enhance independent living skills, reduce isolation by offering peer interactions, teach adaptive behaviors that support greater self-autonomy, and prepare individuals for employment or volunteer opportunities if appropriate. Typical activities will include attending social events or outings, participating in arts and crafts, cooking, gardening, music groups, volunteering at community sites, practicing public transportation and budgeting skills, group fitness or health wellness classes, and then structured lessons or games that teach interpersonal and communication skills. Okay, adults within, so who is this model for? Okay, It is for adults with intellectual and or developmental disabilities who benefit from structured, social, and supervised engagement outside of their home. It is not for individuals who need intensive one-to-one supervision, and it is often used, as a step down or complement to services like, community living supports or community residential alternative. So oftentimes folks receiving in-home care, folks living in group homes will also be receiving, community supports simultaneously. Okay. So now that we've cleared out what these sort of, model like service models and types are, what we're going to be getting into is the profit and loss of each one. Okay. So coming over here, if we look first at supported living, I want to come over here to the right-hand side of the screen. Okay. So I first need to show you, I need to show you the rates, on Georgia's website. Okay, so community living support, just the basic tier rate. Okay, so the final rate that you're getting paid is $9.98 per 15 minutes. Okay, and so what that comes out to is $9.98 times 4 is $39.92 an hour. Okay, that is the rate that we are getting. And so with that said, we're going to plug that into our profit and loss model. Okay. So our hourly rate is I'm gonna put 37.12. It's gonna be $39.92. Okay. 39.92. Okay. So with that said, depending on how many individuals you serve, we are first going to calculate what our monthly revenue is going to be. And so it's very simple, and we're going to talk about how to receive referrals, how to grow, your marketing, how to acquire clients. It is very simple to get your first few clients. And so we're going to base this model off of 3 individuals, okay? If you're able to simply serve 3 individuals in a capacity where you are servicing them, let's say 8 hours a day, 23 days out of the month, okay? Monday through Friday. All right, let's say that it's, for one reason or another, right? Let's just say that we are servicing them 8 hours a day, okay? I like to target individuals who need extended care because it's easier to staff, but we're not making any sort of assumptions that we're going to be servicing individuals who are 24/7. So everybody that you serve is going to have an individual service plan, but for sake of argument, for sake of demonstration, we are going to assume that we are serving folks on an average of 8 hours a day, only 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, okay, that we are servicing these folks. All right, so with that said, how I kind of run this math is the number of participants versus the hourly rate versus how many hours we're servicing them a day versus how many days out of the month we are servicing them in order to get the monthly rate. So while servicing 3 individuals, we're going to be getting $22,000 a month. Now, keep in mind, servicing individuals 40 hours a week, it's very easy to grab one staff and put them on this individual, one staff full-time, 40 hours a week. Okay. And so, let's go ahead and say that in Georgia, for example, we're paying our folks $18 an hour, right? We're paying our direct care staff $18 an hour. Okay. With that said, how the math works right now is we take however many participants we're servicing, 3, we're going to get the same amount of caregivers for them because it's 40 hours a week, 1, 2, 3, 40 hours onto the clients, 8 hours a day, 23 days out of the month times our staffing ratio. So it's going to be, $10,000, a little bit less than half of our margin goes directly into our labor, and our labor is going to be our highest expense by far, right? And rather than a community residential alternative group home, we don't have to pay for rent, mortgage. Oftentimes, we're not paying for these individuals' food needs. We are not, paying for any sort of commercial liability insurance. Oftentimes, we're not paying for any sort of auto insurance. We're not maintaining a vehicle. So keep that in mind. It is much cheaper to run one of these than it is a group home, for example. So if we come over to the profit and loss statement, servicing 3 individuals, revenue $22,000, we got our bookkeeper. I can honestly remove this auto expense, and I'll go ahead and do that for sake of argument. Okay, I was initially using this for a group home model. So auto insurance, let's remove. So we've got general professional liability insurance, we've got our payroll, we've got our payroll taxes and expenses, permits and licenses, workers' comp insurance. We're operating now at a 45% margin, bringing in almost $10,000 a month, servicing 3 individuals, right? Where you are hiring folks to go take care of them, right? You're not the one being a caregiver. Now, if we scale this model up, for sake of argument, we start servicing 6 individuals, right? That's when we, start making, $20,000 a month, $250,000 a year in profit. Okay. So guys, if you want access to this profit and loss, I mean, if you want us to work with you and help you kind of develop your program, go ahead and click the link in the bio and we'll talk about that more later on, right? It's going to get a lot more complex. So that's supported living. Okay. Community living supports in Georgia, personal home care. Okay. Very profitable, very easy to start a very lean model. Community-based day programs, right? Another great model. So if we go back to the rate table and we go down to community access group, right? Servicing, folks who are, for example, category 3, meaning that they're less sort of independent. Let's assume a 1-to-3 staffing ratio. Okay. So the final rate is $5.23 per every 15 minutes. Okay. $5.23 per 15 minutes. And so times 4 is going to be $20 an hour, $20.92 an hour. We're assuming a 1-to-3 staffing ratio. So as we add, 3 individuals, we'll be adding another staff. And so assuming that we're servicing 6 individuals, we're paying our staff $18 an hour, we're bringing in $17,000 a month revenue, utilizing 2 vehicles. Not on commercial auto insurance, your staff can utilize their vehicles to drive residents out and about into the community, and you're bringing in almost $5,000 a month in revenue. Okay, so with all that said, similar expenses, right? Servicing 6 individuals. Okay, we are operating a $110,000 profit business. So I think over here, servicing 6 individuals, that's much more, because we are servicing, folks. The rates are higher for community living services, and oftentimes we get to serve them in a greater capacity than we do in a, adult day program type of setting. So I do, the reason why I say do both is because you can, but they're both very, easy businesses to start. I think a community-based day program is probably an easier business than a community living supports business. But, now you kind of get an understanding for the profit and loss of each of these models. All right. So coming back over here, we are now going to talk about licensing and regulatory requirements in Georgia. Okay. So, licensing process and timeline. So in Georgia, any agency providing residential or in-home support services to folks with intellectual or developmental disabilities must obtain the appropriate state license before delivering services. If the plan is to only provide services in individuals' own homes, community living supports in family homes or independent apartments without operating a licensed residence, the agency will be licensed through the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. Orientation and pre-application requirements. Okay, so Georgia mandates a pre-application orientation for new service providers. Prospective providers must register for and attend a new provider enrollment form presented by the Georgia Collaborative ASO Administrative Services Organization before they can even submit a formal letter of intent or application. These forms, held roughly 3 times a year, introduce applicants to Georgia's provider requirements, waiver service definitions, and the application process itself. For example, in 2025, the forms were scheduled for February 12th, June 11th, and October 8th, each followed by an open enrollment period, a 1-month window for submitting their letter of intent. Participation is mandatory as the state wants to ensure applicants fully understand the regulations and expectations before proceeding. During the orientation, topics covered include an overview of DBHDD policies, the licensing and enrollment steps, compliance standards, and often a Q&A with state officials. Additionally, DCH's HFR division does not require a separate in-person orientation for the community living arrangement license itself, unlike some states like California that has specific orientations for facility licensure. Instead, the emphasis is on the DBHDD Collaborators Forum. After attending the forum, the applicant can submit a letter of intent during the designated open enrollment window. Only those who attend and whose LOI is approved will be invited to submit the full application. In summary, pre-licensing training in Georgia comes in the form of the required provider form. Applicants should plan ahead to attend, as missing a form could mean waiting until the next quarter. Some parts of the orientation might be available via recording or slides after the fact, but live attendance is expected to count as completion. Okay? Sounds good. Next, getting into fees and financial requirements to get started. So, Georgia recently implemented application and licensure fees for providers. The exact amounts are set by the DCH and can vary by facility type and size. This is for community residential alternatives, okay? So, group homes. So, according to DCH notice, applicants must pay an initial application fee and annual licensure fee, okay? Beyond fees, Georgia evaluates the financial capacity of new providers. All right, the DBHD application packet asks for proof of general liability insurance with specific coverage limits and often requires a basic business plan or financial statement. New providers should be prepared to show that they have sufficient operating capital to sustain the program before Medicaid payments start. So understand that in the industry, when we're servicing state-funded, fee-for-service funded individuals, or in the month of August, currently we provide services for the month of August. We get paid in arrears, right? We invoice in September. We get paid, toward the end of September. Okay, so with that said, you need to be financially sustainable at the start of your business to sustain your payroll as you're providing these services initially. All right, this may include demonstrating liquidity to cover a few months of expenses, since Medicaid waiver payments are reimbursed based and can be delayed. And during the enrollment form, DBHDD stresses planning for delayed reimbursement and unexpected expenses, essentially a reminder that you might incur payroll for a month or two before your first check comes in. Once the check comes in, though, it comes in every single month after that. You know what I'm saying? All right, so in practice, that means including in your application any of the following: recent bank statements, a line of credit, or a letter from a CPA attesting that you have the resources to operate. Another financial requirement is maintaining certain insurance coverages. For example, general liability, so $1 million per incident, $3 million aggregate, and other policies like auto and workers' comp must be in place in proof provided with the application. Ongoing costs include the annual license renewal fee and any DBHDD provider fees, okay? DBHDD itself doesn't charge an enrollment fee, but maintaining accreditation if required and training can have costs. Okay. Next, background checks and owner qualifications. Guys, this is pretty boring here. You can work with us and we'll make sure that you have everything you need in order to get submitted. I'll breeze through this. So Georgia has strict background check rules for owners, administrators, and direct care staff. All owners with significant interest in the administrator must undergo a fingerprint-based criminal history check through the Georgia applicant processing system, which includes an FBI records check, okay? That's all I'll say for that. Let's move on, right? Because we got a lot more to discuss in this video. So I want to talk about funding and reimbursement, okay? So Medicaid provider enrollment. Okay, so this section that we're going to be going into addresses the quote-unquote funding agency questions, how to enroll as a Medicaid provider, documentation needed, timelines, and how reimbursement rates and billing works in Georgia system. So Medicaid provider enrollment access. So in Georgia, enrolling as a Medicaid provider for the intellectually and or developmentally disabled services is a coordinated process with DBHDD in the Department of Community Health, the state Medicaid agency. So the first step is the DBHDD provider approval we detailed above: orientation, letter of intent, application, approval, etc. Once your agency is approved to join the IDD provider network, you'll be directed to complete the Medicaid enrollment through DCH. Georgia's Medicaid provider enrollment is done via an online system, which is called GAMIS, okay? After DBHDD's notification, you'll submit a Medicaid provider application specific to the waiver program, which essentially registers you in the Medicaid system under the appropriate provider type and service codes. Importantly, Georgia's IDD waivers are currently not managed by private MCOs. The now comp waivers are administered by DBHDD and paid through Medicaid fee-for-service. This means that you do not have to negotiate separate contracts with multiple managed care organizations for intellectual and developmentally disabled services. Georgia does use managed care for many Medicaid populations under Georgia Families, but the IDD waiver remains carved out and state-ran, at least now as of 2025. So you will enroll with the state Medicaid program rather than credentialing with different health plans. The enrollment typically requires you to pick the services that you'll be billing for. Community living supports, for example, will have specific Medicaid billing codes. Okay. So the steps in summary: DBHDD approval, DCH Medicaid application, and then credentialing and number assignment. After these steps, you'll become an active Medicaid provider and can begin to accept waiver participants and bill for services. Okay. So once you're licensed and Medicaid credentialed, you can start receiving applicants and can start servicing them. So required documentation for enrollment: you'll first need your state license, okay, proof of DBHDD approval, your national provider identification, insurance certificates, background check clearance letters, okay, financial tax and information policies and procedures manual, and then finally you'll get your Medicaid provider agreement. Okay. For the sum up, the enrollment package is basically a mirror of what you prepared for during the initial DBHDD licensure, plus the formal identifications like your NPI and tax info needed for Medicaid. Georgia's collaborative site provides a checklist to new providers. Okay. It includes items like the organizational chart. Now, finally, okay, a common area applicants struggle with is completing all the forms correctly. Double check everything, as an incomplete document can cause the enrollment to be pending. All right, so talking about timelines and support for enrollment. So the overall timeline from DBHDD application to being a fully approved Medicaid provider can vary. Once you've submitted the full application, the entire process can take 60 to 90 days. After approval, the Medicaid enrollment via DCH is often quicker, possibly just a few weeks for processing. A realistic expectation is that from the point of starting the process to having your Medicaid provider number could take around 6 months, though some providers manage it faster if everything aligns, or longer if there are any issues. Keep in mind the open enrollment schedule. If, for example, you attend form in February and submit LOI in March, you might get invited to apply in April, have your DBHD inspection by early summer, and then do Medicaid enrollment by late summer. Georgia does not guarantee, however, a set timeline, but the structured window suggests a cyclical pattern, okay? So finally, the last thing I'll say really is in case of any issues during enrollment, all right, you will be notified. A denial at the DCH stage is serious. If the DCH application is denied, you must wait 1 year and start over with DBHD from the beginning. This underscores the importance of having everything correct. If a minor issue arises, the DCH might simply request additional info rather than deny outright. However, the bottom line is work with somebody who can get you approved from the jump, be thorough and responsive, and utilize the collaborative help desk or DBHD contacts for any assistance to smoothly navigate enrollment. So once you're licensed, once you're Medicaid credentialed, once you understand which direction you're going to be going in, we now need to talk about referrals and client placement, okay? Working with referral agencies. So referral sources for the developmentally disabled in Georgia. Okay, so in Georgia, the primary referral source for individuals with developmental disabilities who need services is the DBHDD regional office system. Georgia is divided into regions for DBHDD services, and each regional field office manages the planning list and allocation of waiver slots as well as referrals to providers. When a new provider is approved, you will be added to the state's provider network directory, okay? The Georgia Collaborative maintains an online Find a Provider search tool that the families and support coordinators can use to find providers by service location. But guys, we're not just going to, have our agency exist on the provider search tool and hope that referrals fall from the sky, right? We're going to be actively networking, figuring out who the different case managers are, joining different Facebook groups, connecting with families, doing so much outbound to get folks into our program. If you're a day program, connecting with group homes is the easiest and best way in order to get your day program filled. Hands down, point blank, period. Okay. So support coordinators is going to be, first and foremost. So each individual on the Now Comp waiver is assigned a support coordinator. These coordinators help the family or individual develop their service plan and links them with providers. Often when a person gets a waiver slot or needs to change services, the support coordinator will provide information on available providers in the area. Building relationships with support coordinators will be extremely helpful for you. They are the ones who recommend or inform families about providers. Okay, next, DBHD regional intake and evaluation teams. For people coming off the waiting list or transitioning from institutions, the regional office plays a direct role in matching them to providers. Family client choice. Georgia adheres to freedom of choice of provider. Many families will proactively seek out a provider that fits their needs. Thus, referrals can simply come from being on the provider list or reaching out via Facebook groups and having a good reputation with the family. A family might call you after seeing your agency in a provider meeting or through word of mouth. Other ways are going to be through state hospital crisis transitions, school system transition fairs and community events, especially for day programs. However, in summary, the DBHCD regional office and support coordination network are the main gateways to accessing individuals on the DD waivers. There aren't separate county referral agencies since DBHCD centralizes this process through its regions, and collaborative. So high-level steps to being a contracted and vendor provider. Inquiry and orientation, letter of intent, DBHCD application, site inspection if you're doing a community residential alternative group home, DBHCD approval, Medicaid provider enrollment, final contract number, okay? And then after post-approval, you will be going through a new provider orientation, okay? Very brief orientation for new providers after approval, okay? Meaning to ensure that you understand reporting, billing, how to access the systems, and then you're going to begin service and monitoring. So after all of this, you can receive referrals and start services. Very long process. DBHCD will often put new providers on heightened monitoring in the first year, meaning they might conduct an initial review after 6 to 12 months to ensure you are following rules. This is part of ongoing contracting requirements. All right. So guys, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of work. All right. I can show you, right? We can peek into, one of the folks that I'm helping out here in Georgia. If we go to Angelic Homes, I'll show you, right? So this is just our project management workflow. Where are we at? So that was phase 1, phase 2. Sorry. We've got the requirements right here listed out. And then finally, we've got the application preparation. Guys, if we go to my G Drive, shared with me. All right, so all of these different forms, ready for submission, letter of intent packet. This is about a 50-page packet right here that we're submitting. It's going to be a new agency application, which is about another 20-page application. And then in addition to all of that, we are going to have all of our, policy procedures that we are submitting, quality insurance plan, risk management policy, participants' rights and responsibilities handbook. It's a lot of work, guys, and it takes a full-time team in the background to help you get your vision across the finish line. All right, it takes somebody who knows the industry, who can help you understand the service model, who can then help you operate the service model on top of all of that, right? Getting licensed, getting Medicaid credentialed is simply step 1 in this vast ocean of providing services. The real fun begins once you're operational, and you're going to need somebody on your team in your corner who will be able to help you out. So guys, if you liked this video, then go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. If you want me to do, one just for group homes, go ahead and let me know. If you're in a different state and you want me to conduct your state, guys, I can't make these YouTube videos fast enough, okay? Like, I'm trying. I want to do all 50 states. We understand and we do all 50 states, but this is a long video, okay? And so with all that said, I appreciate you watching. You can go ahead and click the link in my bio, meet with us, meet with our team, and we look forward to servicing you. Have a great day.